Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our third to last day of social studies class together in this school year. We're almost done, which is sad and exciting at the same time. But today, what we are going to be looking at is starting to wrap up our learning on Reconstruction and how the country was put back together after the Civil War. We are going to look at kind of today the unfortunately negative side of Reconstruction, because ultimately, the truth is that Reconstruction does not work out like the Republicans and the radical Republicans who wanted to stick up for people's rights hoped it would. You've probably seen this in your background for things like when you read To Kill a Mockingbird and learned about Jim Crow laws. If Reconstruction was successful and equality and justice was achieved, there would have been no need for the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 1960s. But we're going to look at today one of the major reasons of why did Reconstruction not quite work out. And this ties to some major issues going on in the world today, because kind of these issues and reasons of why civil rights and equality and justice didn't work out, we kind of see these unfortunately ugly impacts in the world today. So specifically, we looked last lesson at some of the civil rights gains, the positive things that came out of Reconstruction, things like the 14th Amendment and voting rights for African Americans. And these were kind of like laws that changed, that increased people's equality. And for a minute, it looked like things were going to be better. But today, what we're looking at is the laws might be one thing, but what happens when people who have a negative mindset or racist, for example, we're going to look at today, don't care about the laws and might say, well, that's the law, but who cares? I'm not going to listen to the law. I'm going to do the opposite instead and use violence and terror, straight up just terrorism to harass people. And this is where we get the birth of something you might have been familiar with or heard of, which is the Ku Klux Klan, or the KKK. Those hardcore racists in the white robes and pointy hats. Yes, that was created in Reconstruction as what we would call a reaction to the gains of civil rights and equality for African Americans. This is a system known as white supremacy, where they believe that there's almost like a pyramid of races, where you got like another like pyramid thing here. And then they believed that white people are at the top, that they are best and superior to everybody else, which is, of course, a big, giant racist lie. But they believe it and acted on it. And they believed that all the other races were below them and that African Americans should stay at the bottom. And they saw that African Americans were gaining equality and rights and starting to be treated like everybody else. And they did not want that because of their horrible racist view of white supremacy, and decided they were going to do whatever they could to keep these people down, treated as if they were less than human. And this is really horrible. But we're going to identify this because, unfortunately, these hate groups, as they're called, like the KKK, did not die out with Reconstruction and have continued. And unfortunately, in the past 4 or so years, have only grown more and stronger in the world today. So this is something we're going to have to deal with in the future and not just in the dead past. So what our aim for today is historians will be able to, in writing, explain how the violence and terror of the Ku Klux Klan, or the KKK, and other hate groups negatively impacted efforts for equality and justice during Reconstruction and in the world today. So again, we're going to start looking at Reconstruction and seeing where the KKK came from and how this ties to that time period. But then we're going to also look at how the KKK grew across the next 100 years and some of the hate groups that are active in the world today. Because again, as I said, this is unfortunately getting kind of a scary moment where things could be getting worse, or we could stop them. And really, here's a thing where some people think, oh yeah, things just automatically get better. Like, oh yeah, the world's always getting better. It's just going up, 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 up. But unfortunately, things can go down sometimes. As we saw, things were getting better for a little bit here, but then they went down and got worse. And then maybe things got a little bit better, but then they went down again. So really, where we are now, over here, are things going to keep getting better, or are they going to get worse? That's up to us in the world today and our decisions and choices. So that's why we're going to look at the world today and how these hate groups are unfortunately still around and impact the real world today's goals for pushes for more equality and justice in the world. So make sure you do the do now, answer the questions below, and I'll see you in the next video for background information.